right, now I'm on page 515. Follow along. Let's get to it. Many lakes and ponds contain freshwater fish species such as bass, pike, bluegills, and trout. Jacob and his friends went fishing at a nearby lake. The dot plot shows the sizes of fish that the friends caught. What patterns do you see in the data? So here's the dot plot. So we can see one person caught a 5-inch fish. 3 people caught a 6-inch fish. Not 3 people, but 3 6-inch fish were caught. 2 7-inch fish were caught. 2 11-inch fish were caught. 3 12-inch fish were caught. 1 13-inch fish and 1 14-inch fish. So a gap is an interval that contains no data. So we see this gap right here, right? There's no data in that gap. Does the dot plot contain any gaps? If so, where? Well, yeah, we saw it right here. So we would say yes, and then from 8 to 10. Because here's where our gap was. No 8-inch fish, no 9-inch fish, and no 10-inch fish were caught. So there were no fish from 8 to 10 inches long. And there were 2 clusters of fish measuring. So our 2 clusters, here's a cluster, and here's a cluster of data. So that was from 5 to 7. And then another cluster from 11 to 14. And a cluster is a group of data points that lie within a small interval. So there's a little cluster, and then this gap between the two where there was no fish caught, no data. So there's a cluster, again, we can say from 5 to 7, and a cluster over here from 11 to 14. Okay, summarize the information shown in the dot plot. So we can just kind of put it in our own words. The dot plot shows a caught fish from 5 to 7 inches long. Excuse me. And 11 to 14 inches long. And then we could say something like, oops, sorry about that. There were no fish caught that were 8 to 10 inches long. Something like that. We're just kind of putting it in words what we see. Nothing tricky. We're just describing in words what we've just kind of been talking about. All right, number 2, what conclusions can you draw about why the data might have this pattern? Well, these could represent 2 different types of fish, right? So they mention 4 different types that are in the lake. Well, maybe they only caught, I don't know fish that well, but maybe they caught pike, which are generally smaller, and maybe trout, which are generally bigger, I believe. I'm not positive. Again, I'm not a fish connoisseur, but so it could show that difference because they caught 2 different types of fish. So I'm going to say the pattern could show that the friends caught two different types of fish. And that would explain why we have those two, that big gap in between. Maybe one type is smaller and the other type is bigger, and so that's why we have that big gap. Okay. All right, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.